Today on Podcast Them Down, I share with you the forbidden knowledge of DMX lighting and running it yourself while on stage. Welcome to Podcast Them Down. I'm Tim Regan from U.S. power metal band Burning Shadows, Fade to Black Metallica tribute, Dual-Violin folk metal band ISENMOR, and recently vacated Graves True Zombie Metal. Be sure to subscribe, like, or follow. And now, on with the show. All right, so I'm here with Mike from recently vacated Graves and ISENMOR. One of those two bands of which, man, it's been so long since we've recorded, I forgot how to speak and make sentences, but has a light show and it's synced to the backing tracks. And so Mike already knows this, but I reached out to a certain online community asking for lighting tips to spice up a live show, stuff I can control from the stage, stuff that a venue's lighting guy isn't going to know. And they told me that I need to, that is very bold of me to ask for free advice on the internet from people who have been out of work for a year and a half. And okay, yeah, I'm very sorry. You're out of work for a year and a half. But their solution was for me to hire a lighting guy to design it all and travel with the band. And I basically said, no. Like, I don't know what kind of money you think we're making, but no, can't afford that. And that so is actually... other people were piling on. They're like, yeah, you got to hire a professional. I'm like, all I wanted was a software recommendation. That's all I wanted. Like, if you boiled down my post, that's what I wanted.
So you'll see that sort of recommendation pretty frequently, not just for lighting, but if you ask a question like this, like, well, it's like, you should really hire somebody, and it's like, I lose money playing in this band as is. Like, what? I don't understand the people that can, like, what situation do you need to be in that you can afford this as a small band?
Right. And like, I know it's real weird to ask for free advice on the internet, but I figured, and I guess the equivalent would be going to the guitar community and going, hey guys, what kind of strings do you like? Oh, you shouldn't buy strings. There are musicians who are out of work. You should hire a guitarist to play the song. No. What? So anyway, this is my revenge. We're going to go through how to set up your own lighting show, sync it to your backing tracks if you wanted to, control it yourself on stage live if you don't have backing tracks and don't want to do it that way. And yeah, fuck all you elitist, whiny, fragile lighting guys. And clearly it's not the whole community, it's just the ones that responded to my post. This one goes out to you. This is going to be a very exciting episode. Bring your kids, gather around your podcast machine, because this is going to be really interesting and very very accessible to everyone. All right, so let's start at the top. What do you need to create a light show? Well, the first thing you need is lights. So all the lights. This is already off to a great start. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So let me back up. This is how we did it for RVG. This is how RVG's lighting show works. We got a bunch of DMX lights. We programmed the software. We got the controller. We hooked them all up. And bam, you have a light show. So it's not as crazy as they make it seem, but it is a lot of work and a lot of money, and there are a lot of pitfalls. But if you get a good light show in the end, it's worth it. So DMX, what it is it stands for digital multiplexing, which I did not know until I started researching.
I did not either.
Yeah, so it was standardized in the 80s. So it's basically a digital data signal over analog cables. Okay, so and it tells all the lights what to do. That's all it is. So before we get much farther, there's a bunch of terms that they like to use. So we're gonna let's define them because I'm just gonna use them without thinking. So DMX is the digital multiplexing. That's the signal that controls all the lights. And DMX is made up of channels. 512 of those channels is a universe. And a number of those channels in the universe control a fixture, which is a light or a fog machine or something. You know, something that you plug the DMX into. Some of those fixtures can be pars, which is just one of those circle lights that you always see, pars. There's washes, which is like a bar or a par that just lights up a big area. That's a wash. And then that is what comprises the RVG lighting. It's just some pars and some washes, but you can also get lights with movable heads, you know, that look around. There's lasers. That would be a fixture. You can get those geysers that have the dissipating fog, you know, stuff like that. So when you have your lights set up, you know, like those are red, those are blue, fog machines going, that's called a scene. So that's a static setup is called a scene. And then if you have a bunch of scenes in a row, they call it a chase. So nothing makes sense. If we go back to universe, a universe is 512 channels. I would think a universe means everything. But no, it only means 512 channels, and you can have a bunch of universes. So that's kind of dumb. So, these lights. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a few like practical thoughts about so far. You can get pretty deep into this, but if you're looking to get into like your band running its own lighting, you can really go from like $50 to $5,000 for a light.
That is a great point.
Yeah, so it's good to be. I tend to always gravitate towards like this is like the thing to get. Like this is the coolest version of whatever it is that I want. And with stage lighting like this, especially as a small band, you really just got to cut your losses. And it's like get something that's decent. So you want something that's reliable and visually appealing to a degree, but you're not going to be like Meshuggah where you have like I don't know if you've seen videos of Meshuggah live, but they have a very intense light show. That ain't going to be you as a small band. You got to get something that's effective.
Yeah, that is a great point. At the end I had a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. One of those was you get what you pay for. So basically, I think bottom of the line, Chauvet brand and American DJ brand, that's about where you want to be for starters. Yep. You can go up from there, but they're someone once referred to that level as prosumer. Yeah, that's basically what you want. Okay, so now that we got the vocabulary and a hint of the cost, let's talk about color models. I told you this was the most exciting episode. So basically, all these lights, there's a bunch of different ways the lights make the color. All right, and most of the LED lights use RGB as a base. You know, it's the same as your TV. That's red, green, blue. So it's an additive color model. So red and green combine to make yellow. So if you're used to paints, red and green make brown. But these are lights, so red and green make yellow. And then green and blue make cyan. But if you're into paints, green and blue make, greenish, bluish, and then you add some red and you got some brown again. So it's basically, with lights, you can't make brown. With paint, you eventually always get brown. And then white is RG and B for lights. It's all of them. Alternatively, if you want to go super fancy, there's one called RGBAW plus UV. So that's red, green, blue, amber, white, and ultraviolet. So I feel like that's the other end of the spectrum. But according to the article I was reading, this lets you get to colors you couldn't get otherwise, like hot pink, lime green, and electric blue. So obviously, our next upgrade, we got to go to RGBAW plus UV.
There are actually technical reasons why we may not want to, but we can get into that in a bit.
Technical, I think the financial reasons are good enough.
Right.
The way the setup is you have some kind of master control, all right, and master device, and that tells the controllers what DMX signals to send to the fixtures, right? And then each fixture is set to listen to certain channels on the DMX line, and then it does what it does. So the controller would be going, all right, device 1 go red, and then device 1 goes, okay, I'll be red, and then the device 2 doesn't go red. But if you set 2 devices to 1, they'll both go red. So that's the idea behind DMX and control.
Something that is interesting to watch next time you're at a show, if we can ever go to shows again. If you see, if you're watching a band that has like a synchronized light show, for the most part, I think most bands will have a lighting technician. And if you look at the front of house, the sound booth, you'll generally find somebody using something that looks like a mixer, and it's just basically got a bunch of different faders on it, and they control different parts of the whole lighting setup. So, and it's actually pretty interesting to watch, because you'll see these guys doing these crazy finger motions because they learned how to like synchronize everything to the songs in the way that they want. It's like, this is red. This is,
yeah, that's how the pros do it. That's not how our independent metal band will be doing it.
No, absolutely not.
All right. So, I keep mentioning DMX. So DMX cables. What the cables look just like XLR microphone cables. So that's fun, but they are different. Yes, Mike.
Not all of them. There's a 5-pin DMX.
I was getting there. So most DMX cables, actually most of the lower end stuff, are only going to use the 3-pin cables, but there are 5-pin cables. So that was the original design, was a 5-pin DMX cables, but I guess pins 4 and 5 were reserved for future use, and then they decided 1, 2, and 3 worked fine, so they didn't need them anymore. So they just went to a 3-pin connector, and that's what you have, the microphone looking thing. But it is recommended that you still use the 5-pin cable, because apparently if you accidentally plug in a microphone cable with phantom power into your lighting device, your fixture, you will fry it. So that's why they recommend using 5-pin cables. But of course, 5-pin cables cost more, and the fixtures that use them also cost more. So I think just label your cables and don't drink too much while you're setting up. That's my advice.
And don't let any front of house guys at a dinky basement bar touch your lighting rig.
Oh yeah, I was saving that for the end too, because there's some good war stories. So you know, skip ahead if you don't want to learn all this. Actually, no, listen to everything. So the difference between DMX and regular mic cables is the impedance. So if you mix and match, you're gonna have a bad time. Basically, your lights won't work. That's the short version. There was some neat thing. Apparently, there's a maximum length of a DMX run, which is just under 4,000 feet, which is about 3/4 of a mile. So that's pretty impressive for a digital over analog standard that was developed in the 80s.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And then one more caveat. On one DMX run, you can only have 32 devices. I found no explanation why. Oh, I should probably mention my source. My source is a series of sweetwater.com articles that explain lighting and then try to sell you stuff. So in the thing about only 32 devices on a single chain, they go, and you should also, if you need more than 32 devices on one universe, you should you can buy this splitter, which we have. So, you can't use Y cables because that causes data reflections. So you can't cheap out on it. You have to buy everything you want from sweetwater.com, not a sponsor. All right, so talked about that. And all right, so now we get to what pissed me off. So you're at this point where you have all these fixtures, you have your lights, you know how your DMX is going to be set up. Well, you got to control them, so you need a controller. So what I use is a DMX King Micro DMX. So what it is a USB on one end and an XLR DMX on the other. And I actually have it right here for our viewers. So it looks ridiculous. But yeah, this is the cheapest one that I'm aware of. It's that works well and is well supported. This is it costs $70. So if that sounds frightening, then you're not going to like the price of the lights. So, or all the DMX cables you have to buy. But I believe so that's how that was the controller we used originally. I believe you upgraded it, but let's save that for later so people keep listening.
And plus that's going to take some talking through.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, any content is good content, just like any news, any press is good press. So, all right. So now you have one of these USB to DMX. Now how do you tell this what to do? And that's what I was asking. I was because it's been a couple years since I used the old software, so I wanted to see if there was anything better, easier to use. No, there's not. So, the software we use, I was trying to discontinue using is called QLC Plus, and it's Q Lighting Controller. The Plus is because it's a fork by a guy named Massimo Caligari of the original QLC written by Heikki Junila, which looks Finnish. His name looks Finnish to me, and the fork looks Italian. So it's a multinational effort. And basically, QLC Plus is free, and it works with everything, and it has all the fixtures you could ever think of in its database. So if you find other free stuff, it's not going to have the fixtures in the database. It's not going to have the long-winded tutorials, in my experience, because I tried a bunch because the people in the internet community wouldn't answer my question. So, and they say Q light controllers are cross-platform application to control DMX or analog lighting systems like moving heads, dimmers, scanners, and other effects. Our goal is to replace expensive and somewhat limited hardware lighting desks with free software. And I love it. You know, it's open source. It's free. It supports everything. And their goal is to undercut the people who are charging too much. So everything about it's good, except for the interface is dated and there's no
Everything.
There's no visualization, but it works. That's the real thing. It works. The other free ones don't work, at least for our use case.
Yeah, everything about it is good except for using it.
Right.
It's the only bad thing about QLC.
All right. So in QLC, all you do, you're going to do this a billion times. You add your light. It'll tell you the DMX addresses to set the light to, so you got to go to your light and set the DMXs to match. And then you do that, you get all your lights together. Then you make all your scenes. So you, like, in this one, those will be blue and that'll be red and that will be strobing and the fog machine will blast. All right, there's a scene. Your next scene is the moving heads are twirling and, I don't know, everything goes magenta. You know, so those are your scenes. You put all those together, and then in the software you can create a chases if you want. So here's the sequence all these things happen. And then you can assign buttons to trigger each chase. So you got to go in and make a button for each one. And then you assign those buttons to MIDI commands.
Okay, yeah, this is where this gets fucky.
Yes. But again, we're trying to fuck these guys who won't even give you free software advice. They won't even say what kind of strings you should be using on your guitar. They want you to hire a lighting guy to ask him questions, and it's bullshit. And that's why we're going through this. It's purely out of spite at this point. All right. So you've assigned each of these buttons to MIDI notes. Now, here's where you can control it on stage or on the backing tracks. If you have backing tracks, all you do is make a MIDI track and go this note, this note, this note, at this time, this time, and this time. Bam, you're done. You have your lights. You have your light show set up. Done. If you want to control it live, you need a MIDI controller of some kind. So it could be a keyboard. It could be a foot pedal. But now you got to play your lights along with your instrument. So might require some tap dancing or some forethought. For example, make the scenes as long as possible. So then you have to, not scenes, I'm sorry, I used the vocabulary wrong. Make your chases as long as possible. And then you're not tap dancing so much. And then you want to have your blackout button handy because you're going to want to make it so you can hit that anytime. So blackout obviously turns all the lights off. It's the main light switch. All right, so that really is it. Now, the thing we talked about the least is also the most time-consuming part, and the thing we talked about the most is the most expensive part. So, a few extra tips. Fog and haze make the lights look better. I already said you get what you pay for. That's very true here. I mean, the software is free and it does literally everything that you need for the lights, but
Right.
it's a bit obtuse, so you're going to spend a lot of time on watching the YouTube tutorials. But again, you got a free light show out of this. Well, not you didn't have to pay a lighting guy to get your light show out of this. A couple things we learned the hard way: separate the power for the lighting from the power for the audio. Because when the lighting, if they're on the same circuit, they can crosstalk, and either the lights don't work or you get hum in your amps. So, yeah, that one could be important. What's more important is wireless DMX blinds all Wi-Fi devices. So, to speed up setup time, at one point we had switched over to wireless DMX, which sounds great because then you could just throw everything even if you had battery powered lights, you wouldn't even need to plug anything in. You have wireless DMX, you have battery powered lights, throw them wherever. Well, it turns out if you're using something like a Line 6 wireless or a tablet to do your mixing, the wireless DMX obliterates all of it and nothing works.
It should be noted that the wireless DMX that we used was shit. Like,
it was bottom of the line.
Yeah. So it's possible that if we were to invest, because I looked into this for a while. Unfortunately, there's no like wireless DMX standard, right? It's entirely like you can use Chauvet's wireless DMX standard, or there's other ones, and they're completely vendor dependent. There's no good way to do it.
Yep.
Or there's no guaranteed way. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And I believe some lighting can screw with your wireless and audio, just in general, by the way. So it's not even wireless DMX. It might not even be isolated circuits. But I've experienced several times when the lights are screwing with the especially wireless stuff. So like we'll sound check without the lights on, right? And then the second we go on stage, they've turned the lights on and his wireless doesn't work. That kind of thing. So
yeah, so one of the biggest things about adding, and it sounds like a good point to start talking about this, but
actually, before you do, I just want to bring up setup considerations real quick. If you're in the middle of a set and you have all these fucking lights to put everywhere, you're gonna balloon your set time quickly. So I recommend, this is something we were gonna do for RVG, but it kind of fell off. Was, for example, put them on mic stands. Like, get them all set up and then just stick the mic stand where you need to go. Strategize a way to set them up quickly. Unless, of course, you have all the time in the world. Then do whatever you want. But, stick them on the drum set. That doesn't work for RVG. But, there's an idea. So, yeah. All right. So, Mike, I believe you were about to take the software, take QLC Plus and the USB interface out of the equation. So you go ahead.
Well, all right. I want to build on what you just said a bit.
Sure.
About the complexity. So yeah, when you're introducing lights, yeah, your setup is already infinitely more complex, right? Like, not only do you have to set up your gear, or get your instruments and your vocals checked and everything like that, but now you've got to go find time in the middle of all this to set up your lights. And like Tim said, anything you can do to reduce setup time is key here. But a thing that I think is extremely important is to know when to just say, okay, fuck it, it's not going to work this time. No lights.
That is a good point.
So Tim and I have been at numerous shows where we had. It generally involves just trying to set up the lights before anybody else gets there, right? Like, you're trying to just sneak everything in and put it in so that all you have to do is like plug in your last bits and pieces in order to get everything set up. But sometimes it's just not going to work, so always have an exit strategy with your lights. You're a small band, nobody's going to notice if your show is not not the way you envisioned it.
Yeah, I feel like lights aren't make or break. They're just sweetening it, and especially if your lights keep some greedy lighting technician out of work. So.
Oh boy,
this is what happens when you're rude to people on the internet. All right.
Okay, so one aspect of DMX that we maybe briefly touched on was the concept of DMX channels. So Tim talked earlier about, you have these par lights and there's red, green, and blue. So implementation wise, each you have one channel assigned to kind of each color, and that's how you can control which color the light ends up showing.
Well, Mike, I would say that varies by fixture. For example, my American DJ Mega Bar 50s have 7-channel mode. So it's red, green, blue, color macro, strobe,
Right.
dimmer, and something. What's the something? All right, go ahead. but yeah, just the lighting allows you. It's built in. It goes, I can do these 7 things on with DMX, right?
Right.
And then, so if you had 3 of these bars, 1 through 7 is red, green, blue, dimmer, strobe, macro, whatever. That's 1. That's 1 through 7. And then 8 through 9 is the same thing for 8 through 9? 8 through 14 is the light number 2's, same thing. And then light number 3's is 15 through 21. So yeah, that's how the channels work. We should have probably said that earlier, but whatever. If you made it this far, thank you.
Yeah. Well,
if you made it this far, go punch a lighting technician.
Right. But
please do not punch a lighting technician.
Yeah. Mike and Tim are not responsible for any actions that you may take as a result of the jokes made in this program. Where the hell was I? Oh yeah, okay.
You're talking
DMX
about
channels,
punching people.
Yeah, punching, lighting. No. So yeah, for a lot of the entry level lights, so you just have kind of one channel per color, but a channel can be anything, just like Tim said. So it can be, dimming, strobing, whatever. But it can also be like movement. So if you have a light that has some sort of ability to move, you can actually control whatever the manufacturer has assigned to that channel.
Yes,
can be controlled that way. But it does mean that in your universe, if you have a light that has like 50 different, options for you to control via DMX, you're taking up 50 channels.
And you only have 512 to work with in a universe.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost done. Yeah, who can only use 512?
So, by the way, if you fill up a universe with the original strategy here with QLC and the interface. If you fill up a universe, you have to get another interface to run a second universe.
And that's like beyond my that's beyond my ability. Really.
And QLC Plus, not a sponsor since it's open source, makes it easy to put lights in different universes, and you have unlimited universes, which is a limitation in other software. This episode brought to you by QLC Plus. All right, so Mikey, we're talking about not using QLC Plus.
Yes. Okay. So at the end of the day, anything at all that translates that can generate a DMX signal to a specific channel can do any sort of automation that you want. So I Googled around, as I typically do, for solutions, because QLC is a cumbersome program. It doesn't, if you're looking to do kind of coordinated lighting shows where, say, you have like a very dynamic song and you want, when the drummer hits the snare, you want everything to flash red and then stop. Stuff like that gets hard. It's doable with QLC.
Yeah, everything can be done. Whether it should or not is different.
Yeah, it's absolutely doable. There's nothing that prevents it from happening, but the issue is that it becomes very cumbersome to do very dynamic stuff. So I got this thing called the Deca Box is it Response? Oh boy, the Deca Box Protocol Bridge. Okay.
Not a sponsor.
Responsebox.com. So it's actually pretty slick. I don't even know if they sell it anymore. But
I'm looking that up for you.
It is a MIDI to DMX converter. So basically, you can give it a MIDI signal, and it converts it into a DMX signal. It converts it directly into a DMX signal, and it's based off of kind of the MIDI and DMX. Kind of have like you can visualize them vaguely similarly, just in terms of how the protocols work. One caveat is that I think MIDI has half the resolution that DMX does. So I'll get into what that means in a moment. But what it does mean, though, is that you can create a light show by just playing a MIDI file into the Deca Box. And if you use something like I've talked about in a previous episode, like the U-Track 24, the U-Track 24 allows you to play MIDI along with clicks. So you can actually feed that MIDI signal into the Deca Box, out to DMX, and then you can have very dynamic, very, very dynamic lighting shows that are less cumbersome, because you end up just basically putting RGB values in MIDI. So it's like, right. I want red.
It's like MIDI note 1 is DMX channel 1.
Yes.
Is that how it is? And like the velocity of MIDI note 1 is the value assigned to DMX channel 1. All right, so that's the important difference. So you are literally playing like the MIDI. So in the QLC strategy, MIDI note 1 is scene 1, all the lights, or chase 1. Here's what all the lights do. But now it's become a live signal gets converted to DMX thing.
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly what it is. So by doing it this way, it does make things a lot easier. I ended up going into Reaper and using some of their MIDI plugins. You can make it so that each MIDI channel is you're only using like notes 1, 2, 3, but then you use the MIDI plugins in Reaper to like offset them depending on which light. So
Oh,
if you
that's a tricksy one. I like that.
yeah,
So
I would.
light number 2, which is channels 8, 9, 10, you still play 1, 2, 3 and transpose it.
But what it means then is that and you can just copy the MIDI if you want to if you want to replicate it between like if you want light 2 to do exactly what light 1 did, you can just copy the MIDI as opposed to having to like copy the MIDI and then shift it up by 8. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to actually do the manual transposition, which is nice.
That's neat. That's neat. So I did find a Deca Box from Engineering Solutions Incorporated, not a sponsor. MIDI to DMX converter made of anodized aluminum, model name DB Tech MD1 for $260 on Amazon, and it's Prime. See, there's only one left. So by the time this airs, I might have bought it.
I'm pretty sure I spent much more on that.
Yeah, well, I can't afford $260 unless we start getting sponsored. So,
no, but it's a slick device, and it definitely makes things easier. The other thing that it does is it allows you to not have to carry a computer to run your light show.
I'm glad you said that. Allegedly, I haven't tried this. QLC Plus works on a Raspberry Pi. Now, I don't know if the DMX King micro USB, what is it? Where'd I put it? Oh no, I lost it. There it is. The Ultra DMX Micro. I don't know if this works on a Raspberry Pi, but in theory, you could run your whole thing off one
I imagine it should.
Yeah, I bet it does. DMX King, also not a sponsor. Today's podcast and down, not brought to you by.
The episode in which we shill a bunch of stuff that will not get us any money whatsoever. Beautiful.
Right.
I don't know that is there a ton else to say? I mean, like, I think in an ideal, actually, this is interesting to say. In an ideal world, every light would be battery driven. Every light would be wireless. So you'd get up to a show and you just either have the lights attached to your shit already, like on your guitar cab or bass cab or mic stands or whatever, or you just like, I don't care, put them down, done. That, and then the second thing is basically tying it to your monitoring that you're already using. So if you're using in-ear monitoring, and you have click tracks of some sort, or actually, let's just say you have click tracks of some sort. Maybe your drummer just has the click track. But tying it to that somehow, if you can tie your lighting show into that, that's kind of the ideal. That's you're not touching anything. You just put the lights down. You start up what you normally do, and it just happens to control lights at the same time. That's the perfect lighting situation for us, and I think for generally a small band.
Yeah, and you have to really sit down and plan what you're gonna do. Yeah, so it is a big time investment and financial investment, but at the end of the day, you can go, okay, I just want neat effects that happen here, here, and here. Then you got them. Or you can go, we only play bars that don't have any lights. So let's bring a whole fucking light show, And it's, we've given you the tools. Now, now go
forth.
Go put some lighting guys out of business.
Go forth. Be lighting people.
Thanks for listening to Podcast Them Down. You can find Burning Shadows, ISENMOR, and recently vacated graves on Bandcamp, as well as Facebook, along with Fade to Black Metallica Tribute and Podcast Them Down itself. Until next time, keep it metal.
Beautiful.